Hi, and welcome to a very special episode of Nirvana with Nav. Earlier this week, I sat down with my friend Aous, who is also a fellow meditator, to have a talk about my recent Vipassana experience. If you're unfamiliar, I recently attended a 10-day silent meditation retreat at a center just north of Toronto. During my time there, I had no access to my phone. I was unable to speak to others. I was unable to read, write, listen to music, or exercise, while also being asked to meditate upwards of 10 hours a day. I think there's a lot of great stuff discussed throughout this episode, and Aous offers a really great perspective about what meditation and mindfulness can mean for the average person. I'm going to add some show notes to the description below if you wish to come back at a certain point. Outside of that, if you ever have any questions, just search Nirvana with Nav and hopefully you can find me. Otherwise, with that out of the way, let us begin.
Today, I'm gonna try to take the role of someone who is listening to the podcast as much as someone who is engaging in this podcast. Um, Me and Nav have been friends for a while, and we have conversations similar to this quite often. Um, and I think my goal today will be to help whoever is listening to just kind of break it down even further by bringing a little outsider curiosity into Nav's Vipassana retreat experience. And this happened when?
Middle of last month, June 14th to the 25th, so over a span of 10 days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, it,
So
yeah, go ahead.
give it some context prior to this Vipassana trip, because not everyone's listening to the prior podcasts. Not everyone knows you fully. So give the little quick explanation of kind of like how you got to deciding on a Vipassana retreat. It didn't happen overnight.
So, what people thought I went on was some people thought I went on a vacation. Um, the experience I went on was a 10-day silent meditation retreat. Now, it was in the GTA, so just north of Toronto, at a Vipassana center. That's Vipassana.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special type of meditation technique that you practice over the course of 10 days.
Google has pretty good autocorrect. I think people will be
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Now, what does it mean to do a silent meditation? This is where, like, a lot of people, I had somebody think that I was spending 10 days in my room,
Oh wow.
and I didn't have access to my phone, and I was like, I wish. Uh,
I mean, that sounds like a makeshift retreat. I think anything away from technology becomes a retreat of its own these days. That's it.
so, for the course of 10 days, I had no access to my phone,
Hmm.
which is a big deal for a lot of people. And on top of that, I took vows, you could call them, to not speak, which included communication forms of reading and writing and listening to music and exercising. So those were the five things that you were kind of discouraged from doing during your 10 days. So no speaking, no reading, no writing, no listening to music of any sort, or exercising.
And as somebody who knows you, as soon as you listed all those things, I found it really funny because I knew you had to face boredom at least once in that experience. Fuck. Because your entire life is working out, training, coaching, teaching, very active. You're biking in between all of that. You're taking Cookie on a walk in the mornings. Like, you're pretty much on the go all the time. When you're not, you have a whole ass library in your room, and yeah, you also enjoy life. You like to go out and be pretty out there. So realistically, for anybody, even the laziest non-outgoing person, this experience is still pretty daunting when you first face it. But how did you get to the Vipassana idea in the first place? So what's your journey been like?
Okay, so
Give the history here.
I can preface everything by saying that I had a background. I've been meditating for about 3 years. There were people there that have never meditated before as well. So as much as I had a foundation, there are also people that hadn't yet planted any seeds in their soil, right?
Which was crazy to hear from me.
Yes. I was the only yoga teacher there. There were doctors, there were other businessmen, people in their 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, all walks of life. But what brought me there was, it's been this journey throughout this year specifically. The intention being to open my heart. Started therapy because of that. And the mantra going in, if you want to call it that, was to take the elevator down from my mind and into my heart. And being a yoga teacher, I try to practice what I teach and I try to teach what I practice. So meditation's a big component of what I try to bring. And for many of us, it's just closing our eyes and sitting down and insert the rest of whatever it might be.
Yeah, if we talked about what is meditation, we could make that the whole podcast. I think to make it fun, in a few sentences, how would you define just meditation in your experience? Like, how would you tell someone what it is?
It's
just really quick.
Yeah. It's I think a lot of people think it's concentration and focus. But then all your mind's going towards focus. It's the ability to take one step back from the focus and to just observe. So just relaxing and observing the moment for what it is. Like the objective observation of the moment.
Yeah.
That's bite size.
Yeah, there's a couple ways that I like to tell it is just paying attention with no judgment. So you do have concentration, but it's not everything. And if you're not concentrated, it also doesn't mean you're not meditating. It's okay to be scattered as long as you're able to regather yourself. That is a meditation. So we do it in day-to-day life all the time. It's all about the intention of just kind of sitting down to do it. But go ahead.
No, that was beautiful. That was yeah. So this was a silent meditation retreat, and my intention being of being able to find this space within me where I can take myself away from my thoughts and bring myself closer towards what is the felt experience of life.
What is your regular practice prior to this Vipassana retreat? Outside of yoga teaching and practicing, what is the formal sit-down meditation practice like for you?
So, inconsistent was where I was at before. I would stay consistent enough where I would make a 5-minute window or something. But some days or some weeks would be better where I could be doing 20 minutes in the morning, and it helped to set the day. But I would notice big differences on days, and where we've talked about it, where when I haven't meditated in the morning, the rest of the day just rolls in a really weird way.
Go on. Like what is a day-to-day life without meditation versus with meditation?
Coming back from this experience, it's a lot more powerful to set an intention, or just to not even an intention, but just to approach the day with a clear head. And we don't realize how much baggage we just carry from the night before into the morning after. So the morning meditation, as much as it's there to clear the head, it's also there to really let go of everything from your dreams and before. At least now that's how I'm coming to perceive it a little bit more.
That's a cool perspective.
Yeah, because
it's like cycles.
Yeah, it's a cycle of day and night,
cycle
up and
of
down.
letting go.
Yes. And I think a lot of us, whatever we go to sleep with, sometimes it's what we end up dreaming about or having nightmares about. And then we carry that weight of whatever it is we dreamt about through the day. Whether or not we can remember it or not, our body still holds on to things like that. So I think the morning meditation for me has become a lot more powerful way of starting the day with fresh eyes. So get the hell away from your phone, first of all. fresh eyes, just
Easier said than done for
of course, of
the
course.
average human being.
Hey, just wake up a little bit earlier. But to start the day with fresh eyes and fresh mind. So, and then yeah, to let go of the day before. But I would say a 5 minute window is a great place to start. Anything is better than nothing, and so
100%.
many of us can't
100%.
realize the power
Yep.
of just that 1 minute and how powerful we can make 1 minute feel to us.
Forget a minute. Just be intentional with like some things.
Yes, yes,
You know what
yes.
I mean? Like you don't gotta sit down and meditate, but like if you're gonna sit down and work, then be like, all right, fuck, I'm gonna intentionally work now. You know what I mean? I think living life with some intention is kind of like the starting point of the whole practicing part. You know, you're never gonna get to the point where you say, oh, I intend on sitting down and doing nothing,
Yeah.
because it sounds absurd, and it is absurd, but absurd in a really good way where like for me, I've been meditating for the past 3 years, but on and off for like the past like 10. Just simply out of curiosity and wanting to get into it, never getting fully into it. And I'm gonna put Nav here on the spot for a second and say he really motivated me one day when he called me out. And so initially, I was the first person to introduce Nav to mindfulness and meditation, and I talked about the benefits.
True.
And I wasn't as in depth into it as I am now, for sure. But I had a pretty surface level understanding of it all. And you know, he listened, he agreed, but you know, it never really sunk in. And then one day he's like, "Yeah, my buddy Vinny. Vinny's a badass. That's totally cool. I get it. I get it. Vinny's cool, man. Shout out Vinny. Vinny Diaz, one of the greatest MMA fighters in Ontario right now. He introduced Nav to Headspace, and that's how the mindfulness and meditation journey really kickstarted. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hey, how come it didn't sink in when I gave it to you? And what did you say?
No, it he broke my perception of what meditation
Mm,
could be.
maybe because it was seen from like an athlete versus casual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And because I'm not gonna get into detail, but he's a fighter.
yeah,
But great guy and everything.
yeah.
And he's mentioned issues of anger and stuff before. And he's very
Very
chill,
normal human thing,
very
by
no,
the way.
yeah, yeah,
No
yeah,
shame in
yeah, yeah,
anger.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, when he talks to me, he's very chill, and he just goes, "Yeah, like I use Headspace for anger," and I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, here's an MMA fighter,
I love it.
you know, like,
Yeah.
and you have the image of what this MMA fighter is supposed to project, and you know, you're supposed to, but anger, like, oh, like it's. I didn't understand how his relationship with this emotion, right? Um, so it just like a light bulb came on of I guess something more relatable or coming from a more relatable experience because you deal with it as in the combat sports environment, learning to lose and coming back and dealing with frustrations and learning how to work with that. But a lot of people don't work with it.
A lot of people don't live it. And that's what you told me. And it's like, shit, he's right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
when I heard that, I was like, absolutely understandable. Uh, let me get to the point where I can kind of back up what I'm saying with like at least a regular practice. That's the bare fucking minimum. So, you know, it started with learning and it started with like getting invested in it and trying, you know, guided meditations again and figuring out what's comfortable for me. And over time, I was able to develop a regular practice and kind of make it a very foundational part of my life and live it and actually like try to integrate it in my day-to-day life, not simply, you know, sit, meditate and go about the day. And that does happen too. The human part happens. But in between all that, there's still a couple moments of mindfulness that I know I didn't have before. And to me, that is a game changer. And that's where I've become such an advocate for it, because all it takes is a couple moments is to change your day, to change your life, or change someone else's day. Because just think about all the moments where you could have stopped, you know, spazzing out at somebody or being annoyed at yourself or, you know, simply just catching some anger while you're driving. And these are all very fucking normal things. But to catch it, stop, breathe, and then kind of move about your day, I think that's about as much freedom as it gets.
Well said.
Yeah. Going back to the Vipassana retreat here.
Yes, welcome back. Uh-huh.
So now that you've established kind of what your practice looked like, what a practice can look like, day one, start of the morning,
Day zero.
day zero.
So we'll get
Okay.
with
How about the week leading up to it? What was that experience like?
okay, so the week prior to a hectic. So I had in mind that I would be able to adjust my sleep schedule because you're asked to wake up at 4 a.m. For the 10 days that you're there. I was unable to do that. I was away on a wrestling team trip. So drove all the way down to Albany, New York, 6 hour drive, uncomfortable sleep in a very cheap hotel. Um,
Somewhat hotel, somewhat motel.
yeah. Coached for a full day in outdoors and then drove back. So that was like the weekend, and I left on a Wednesday. So the Monday, and then Monday morning I taught. So Monday morning I taught 2 classes. So it was just socially draining, physically draining, mentally draining. So I don't think it made a difference at all. But that's just, I just brought all of my daily life with me, and then I just dropped it. So the week leading up to was pretty hectic, just routine. I wasn't able to let go of as many things to settle myself down. Yeah. Ooh, good
So,
idea. Yeah.
pretty hectic week leading up to it.
Yeah.
And you pretty much just came in with like a bunch of temporary baggage, I guess.
Yeah. You're
Just a lot of stuff on the mind, a lot of stimulation from what happened. And
Yeah.
you're tired. You didn't do the things that you set out on doing, and it kind of snowballed into your first day. So day one.
day zero still.
Oh
Still.
wow, we're
So
still on day zero.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's great. This place is in Simcoe, a former Boy Scout ground that was donated in 2003. I think 140 acres of land, like huge space. Men are segregated from women, but during registration you sort of mingle, but not really. So day zero, I arrived. That's registration day. That's why it's important. So you arrive. I arrived around 3:30, and I thought I was gonna have my phone for longer than I, and I remember sending you the last text, be like, okay, LOL, gotta give my phone or something.
Yeah, I
Like,
think earlier in the day I was like, hey, what time you gonna be locking in the phone? And he's like, I think around like 5, 6, and then I got a text around 4. He's like, oh, never mind,
yeah,
it's now.
yeah, it was very shortly after arriving. So once you've registered, made sure your name, and you fill out like a little questionnaire kind of thing. Provide your wallet, keys, phone, all that kind of stuff. You're like, all this stuff you got to let go of, and then you sign.
Things you probably take for granted too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave in my watch. You apparently didn't have to give in your watch in hindsight, but I love that I gave up my watch. If anybody knows me, like, I'm always wearing my like smartwatch and tracking my shit. But for 10
know for
days, but for 10 days, no tracking, no nothing, just no even real concept of time. You just know that the day's moving because everything's kept to a schedule.
What was it like having sorry to interrupt this
Yeah,
point, but like,
yeah.
what was it like having a timeless day? Where it was just simply on like you do, and this happens, and you do, and then you sleep. Versus a regular day where you're 9 a.m. waking up, 9:15, got to do this.
It can be long, it can be short. And when you spend so much time to meditate, you can meditate for up to 10 hours a day, essentially, if you stay committed to the daily practice. But sometimes you close your eyes and 5 minutes goes by. Sometimes you close your eyes and somehow an hour has gone by. So depending on how your mind is that day and how your body feels that day, the day could be very smooth. And we were in like high trees. So once sun, like, you don't even really see sunrise. It just gets like, you're inside the meditation hall, but it gets bright really quickly, you could say.
Is there windows in there?
Not inside the meditation room, no.
Oh, interesting.
Outside, like, there's a window to peek into the grounds, but inside the meditation room, lights are very dim / like almost turned off kind of deal. You get to your spot.
And how I guess the things you're saying here kind of apply both to a regular day and a meditation day. It's just kind of like how your mind is showing up to it, really.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So some days are, and it's only a course of 10 days, but some days felt longer than others depending on how my mind felt. Some days felt very, it's not, I won't say fast, but it's just like, there's just like a progression that's like, there's no resistance to it. You just
Right.
flow with the day,
Right.
right? Yeah.
So registration starts.
Start, I give in my keys and all this stuff at one table, and
Hmm.
then I go to the immediately next table and I give in my phone. And I was like, because I thought I had more time, didn't have more time. So you give in your phone, and then you have a window of about an hour, hour and a half to kind of mingle with everybody else that's showing up.
Hmm.
So there's like a big group of guys,
Hmm.
all kind of like asking like, so is this your first time, like you done this before, like like very timid, like shy boy energy, right?
That's funny.
And there were some people that have done it a couple of times, this and that, and then this one guy shows up. Somebody asks him like, how many times have you done this? And he's like, I don't know. What? He had done it, he'd done like the 10 days, and there's like additional 20 days and 30 days, so he had also done that,
Hmm.
or done some aspects of it, I don't know, right? But somebody just had asked him like, how many have you done? And he's like, it doesn't matter, I don't know.
Wow.
And it's like, whoa, okay. He's like, each time you do it, you just gain something new.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. And that, it makes total sense. It makes total sense.
Inspiring.
But it's like day zero, you're like, wait, what? And then you eat together on that first day zero night, and you've picked your residence. So, or you, a residence has been assigned. Sorry. So for the men's side, there were 6 cabinets outdoors, or you're inside. And if you're inside, for me, I got assigned a like roommate kind of deal. So one room with a curtain in the middle,
Hmm.
bed on each side.
Hmm.
I had only exchanged like hellos with him at the start,
Sick.
and yeah, that was kind of it. Uh,
Wait, so how big is this room?
Not big, like so, like this. There was like 2 twin beds.
So you're within each other's contact at all times.
Yeah, yeah. Like I have to walk past his bed to get out the room.
Oh,
Like it's a dorm room kind of
right,
deal, right? So this is a Boy Scout campground. Like these were
right.
old residents, so very small corners, but it's just like a curtain in the middle. It's like pure prison.
Oh man.
So I've been assigned my room. I've put off my stuff. We brought all my stuff there, and then dinner was around maybe like 7 or something like that. There's an orientation, then there's dinner and all that, and then after dinner, 8 p.m. you go to the meditation hall. First course begins. Silence begins.
Wow.
So you've mingled for a period of about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then so everything you think about these people is just first impressions,
Hmm.
small talk, mingle, mingle, and then 8 p.m. once you've exited the meditation, silence begins, and then you begin the next 10 days. Sleep, like you sleep in the same spot, you wake up in the same spot, you eat in the same kitchen, you meditate together in the same hall, but
You have to do the same spot every day.
yeah, you're assigned a spot.
Oh, cool.
But there's no talking, no reading, no writing, no listening to music, no exercising. Asterisks
Hmm.
amongst all of these, because you're not going to get kicked out per se if you leave, if you break one of the things. But if you're able to stay true to that, like not even I didn't do any yoga. Most I did was like fold forward
Hmm.
and like sit in a squat just to like ease some tension through my back. No downward facing dog, no crunches, no nothing. And then like I brought a foam roller, so just to simply like open my back after sitting long days,
Yep.
long days of sitting.
Yep.
But outside of that, nothing. Now you're not a horrible person if you do any of the things, right? Like there was this older gentleman who would do crunches like almost every night. I don't know why. You just try to get energy out, right? But attachment.
Hmm.
I,
And
I think. Sorry.
there's one detail in there that I think is worth mentioning. It's the food. The food was all vegetarian too.
Yes.
So if
So
you're a meat eater,
yeah,
that's another thing you gotta let go of.
and there were some people that had like in the month prior to, or in like whenever they planned for this, they had to let go of meat. Wasn't a big deal for me. Like most of my diet's vegetarian, and then I throw in chicken and stuff like that. Beef, not really. Chicken primary if I'm gonna go for that. Eggs in the morning. So, but yes, the whole 10 days vegetarian. Sometimes like dairy-free options were there. Like there's dairy-free desserts or like gluten-free stuff. Blah blah blah. 10-day fixed menu. So like on day 0, you can go through the whole menu if you wanted to. It was like written out what was going to be served. But everything's planned out for the 10 days. Made for a finite number of people. So it's made for the amount of people that are there.
Oh shit, can't agree.
So if you're thinking of going for seconds and thirds,
You might be an asshole.
you might be an asshole, and then there might just not be seconds and thirds because all of the people have had their one plate. And one of the things that's like said early on, I think it's like during the day 0 course, like meditation or something like that. It's like if you're used to eating one plate of food, go with 3/4, just to prepare your body for like the adjustment, because you're not going to be burning as many calories.
Yep.
You're not going to be exercising. Like you can go for your walk. Walking was like the only permitted exercise, and there's a walking trail for both men and women. And I did between 80 to 100 laps in various routes of this one trail. Vegetarian meals. Breakfast was at 6:30 in the morning.
Let's do the whole day.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's include the food in there.
Okay.
And then include everything else. So what is the starting moment of your Vipassana day 1
Perfect.
look like?
So day 1, gong bell smashes at 4 in the morning, 3 times, and that's just to signify this is waking up time, 4 a.m.
It's still better than an iPhone.
Yeah. And if you have like an alarm clock in your room and it's set to 4 a.m., then your alarm clock wakes you up at 4 a.m. The first day, or the first session, is from 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning. And this is like an informal session. So you can choose to meditate in your room. You can choose to meditate in the hall. And in the hall, the meditation hall is only about like 100 steps away from your bedroom. So not far. 100, 200 steps. So you can choose to meditate in the hall. If you wish to like go for like a short walk, like that's okay as well, just to like open your body for the day. Very informal, but whatever you need to kind of do to set yourself up for the day. Now for some that also meant for me as well, like I didn't wake up at 4. Like I heard the bell and then I would sleep a little bit extra. And some days it varied. I didn't sleep all the way till breakfast, not once, but latest I think I woke up was 6 a.m. And that first session is from 4:30 to 6:30, and then 6:30 was breakfast. So most days I was able to wake up around 5 and then comfortably prepare myself to be in the meditation hall for 1 hour of the 2-hour window. So 4 o'clock I'd be awake, but then I would choose what to do for the next hour. And sometimes I just dozed off. Sometimes just snooze and roll.
It's fine. You did what was right for
Yeah.
you. I think that's the whole point of this retreat, is you do what's
and you have to
right
figure out what works.
It may be a physical prison, but it's not a literal prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I found worked for me, I'd wake up around 5, put on my layer because it'd be a bit cold in the morning, do a short walk, and then make my way over to the meditation hall. And very pleasant in the morning because there's like a blessing being played, and everything's being played via like a tape recording.
Okay.
So it's like all the discourses that you hear, all the technique that's being instructed are pre-recorded tapings from, I believe, like the 90s.
And is there actual teachers there?
And there's actual teachers there. They're assistant teachers.
Okay.
If you have a question for an assistant teacher at any point during the 10 days, you are permitted to speak to them, either after a group sitting, which is 3 times a day, or you can book a one-on-one interview, which only lasts like 5-10 minutes, I believe. But once a day, they're available for interview sections as well. So 4:30 to 6:30, early morning informal meditation. And then 6:30 to about 7:30 or 7:15 was breakfast. And so I built my schedule. When you get there on day 0, you choose like a time of showering and using the bathroom.
Wow. Okay.
And they just say, like, if you choose this time, stick to it. There were other openings, so I could have switched. But I made mine 7 a.m. to 7:20. So I tried my best to set myself up for success on the day. So breakfast at 6:30, have my breakfast, smell my coffee, take 2 sips, and then get to the bathroom by 7, do my business. Shower was like miserable.
Right after 2 sips, that's usually how it goes.
Sip and go, right?
Yeah.
The shower was like meh. It was like not enough water pressure, but it just felt nice.
Okay.
Whatever. Not really hot water, but I was used to it from India, so I didn't have any expectation there. Shower and brush my teeth and all that by 7:30. That was my day. And then I'd go for a little walk from 7 to 8. 8 a.m. is the first group sitting. So you're with everybody. Everybody comes together, teachers, the servers that are on site. Everything's volunteer based. So there's servers that are old students that have done the course before. And they cook for you. They take care of the grounds while you're there, kind of deal. So they come, they're meditating with you. But everybody's in the meditation hall, men one side, women on the other. Dimly lit room, everybody's in comfy clothes, so you can't really make out anybody from anybody. And when you're in the meditation hall, you're basically being asked to like keep your eyes closed as well. Like that's the business. Like your eyes serve no purpose there. So first group sitting, 8 to 9. Each day's different. Each day's to a schedule. So there's a technique that you practice. We can touch on that later. But in terms of what you do from 8 to 9, you sit together and meditate. From about 9:30 to 11, it's once again an informal practice. You can choose to meditate in your room or stay in the hall. Mm-hmm. And sometimes in the morning you had a check-in with your assistant teacher just to make sure that you were understanding the technique that was being taught or if you had any questions. 11 to 12, lunch. And if you're a old student, meaning you've done the course before, that's kind of where your meals end for the day. If it's your first time doing it, you're permitted to eat fruit and have tea or coffee at 5 p.m. Otherwise, if you've completed a course before, you're asked to abstain from eating after lunch.
Wow.
And for about half the days, I would say I didn't eat anything past 11. One, because your body just needed less and less food. And I think one main thing that caught me was there was one day where it was one of the early days, I think maybe like on the third day, but I caught myself eating my snack, my apple or whatever, just simply out of the fact that like I wanted to bring in something that felt good and I was just trying to kill time for the next session. And there's nothing wrong inherently with that, but just I wasn't hungry.
You were hungry for something else though.
Yeah, it's the mouth feel and the crunch, the taste, and I'm also just eating to kill time because everybody else was eating. And so it just like caught myself in the moment. Still had the apple. I didn't like huck to spit it out, but had the apple. But then there's certain days where you just realize you get to like 5 p.m. the gong rings and it's like, okay, food would be okay, but like body's like there's no message from the body saying I'm hungry or I need something. So what else is being experienced? And you can just have water you can have all day. You also just realize the body can go 20 hours without food, 15 hours with food. So it's like not something too drastic, but at the same time, it's something that a lot of people have to prepare for because that's a lifestyle that we do not have. Yes,
that's what I was waiting.
Yes.
You say it's not too drastic, but dude, like, give me 5-10 minutes in the kitchen. I'm drastically snacking. All right, like, it's not too drastic for a lot of people, but like, man, like. I think the average person will just snack to snack, and that's the average fucking person, you know what I mean? And that's the average experience. And then here you are, you're like, yeah, 15 hours you can go without eating. And then I sat down and did nothing, and then I didn't eat. I think that's a lot, you know what I mean?
Of course. So yes, very. People have to, if you have these foundations set, and which I'm thankful that I've done, and these weren't like I wasn't training for this in any way, right? As much as I've meditated for my 3 years, I don't think it helped, but there was a lot of also difficulty created from my meditation experiences from the past that I just have to, so everybody's at a different spot of entering this experience, and For me, yes, 15 hours of no food
Normal.
is it's normal some days, yeah. Um, but yeah,
Sorry, what time is it today?
I,
4:18. What have you ate today?
I've had a coffee.
What time did you wake up?
7.
All right, there we go. I think I made my point. Case closed. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Shit. Now you're like I said, the meals that you're given are filling, and there's usually like some if you eat fast enough, you can get seconds of some of the stuff, but like rice, you probably won't. Kind of like carbs and like the that kind of stuff. Sometimes not. But there was like chilies, curries, like not the American like North American idea of vegetarian, which is just like salad and leaves.
Tofu.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, there was some good tofu there as well.
No,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
American
yeah.
is maybe tofu.
Like very rich, filling kind in my stomach's like thinking about it now, but very rich, hearty meals that were provided each lunch session. Breakfast was like pretty basic.
Hmm.
I just made kind of like granola, fruit, yogurt bowls kind of deal. Tried to sprinkle all the different stuff to make it complex enough to sustain me. But even then, some days I noticed I could go with eating a little bit less because you just aren't feeling hungry the same way. But at least that was my experience.
Hmm.
So you have your lunch at 11 to 12.
Hmm.
And then from noon to 1, if you've booked an appointment with the teacher, it's in that window. Otherwise, it's like general, like it's just like a rest period. So if you're going to take a nap, you can take a nap. If you want to go for a walk, you can go for a walk. And we were very fortunate. The weather was pretty like warm or nice, and we were in tall trees, so like midday walks were they were like my jam.
Nice.
I'd try to get 2 laps like every time that it would be allowed.
Just getting the fix. I get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Getting those steps without counting those steps, right?
it's fun.
And so from noon to 1, that was the deal. You go for a walk or just spend it however. Take a nap. Took a nap some days. Most days just walked.
Hmm.
And then from 1 to 2:30, informal meditation of choosing to meditate in your room or going to the hall.
Hmm.
2:30 to 3:30, a group meditation together. 3:30 to 5, an informal by yourself in your room or in the hall.
Yep.
5 to 6, that tea break. And if you're a new student, you get your fruit. You're like, one day there was pineapple. Oh my God. But otherwise, just like apple, orange, banana in terms of fruit. And then you have like your choice of different kind of teas or coffee or just milk. Yeah. Whatever. 6 to 7, a group meditation. From 8 to oh no, from 6 to 7, yeah, from 6 to 7, sorry, group meditation. From 7 to about 8:30 is the evening discourse. So each night there was, once again, pre-recorded taping, but a breakdown of the technique, wonderfully like laid out, like discourse. I don't want to give too much away at this point, but just kind of a talk from the person that founded this program, the Vipassana program.
Do you remember their name?
SN Goenka. He's from Burma and then went to India and then spread it across the world. There's about 200 centers around the world.
Cool.
And then from 8:30 to about 9, it's like this last short meditation. It's usually just kind of a meditation to prep you for the following day. It's like a nice closing to the day.
Is that one guided?
It's more guided, yeah,
Okay.
because it's more or less, and then the following day will be more or less completely unguided or just introduction and then meditate. But
So the most guidance you'll get is probably like the start of the day, from day 2 to 10.
yeah, yeah, like you'll hear pockets, but I mean, in the context of the hours that you sit,
Hmm.
maybe the first 5 minutes are guided just to prep you for your mind to prepare. But then you're in there for 55 minutes of silence where you yourself are practicing the technique. So you're guided and then let go. And so that was a bit of a challenge. I enjoy my guided meditations, but it's like in a space where everybody's left unguided. It's a very quiet meditation hall. So even like coughing sounds very loud. bodily sounds, like you can hear people's stomach, you can hear a fart squeak out, and it's all like you hear all the sounds from
You,
both sides,
well,
So,
that's so
so
girls fart.
girls can confirm girls do fart from
Oh
time to time.
my god! You
Uh,
heard it here, folks.
if you take away anything, it's yes. Um,
I just ruined the podcast in one joke. All
but yeah, it's
right.
a very very quiet space, and once the guided part's done, it's you're like over with on the introduction. You're sitting to meditate, and it's all seated, either on a cushion on the ground, or if you have back problems, leg problems, you can be given a chair. And then like you get all the cushions that you want. Like you create a seat, a throne is what it ends up becoming, because like you've just had so much stuff all around you, so you try to find the best position, experiment with different cushions and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Every body is different. Backrests were cool. I never got one. They ran out.
Damn.
I would say like 80 to 90% of the women within the first day or two like seized it, like they seized hold.
Intelligent.
And the men's side was like a little bit more strong-headed, I guess. But
Primitive.
yeah. And then one by one they just break down, and
Uh,
but then we were running out of backrests, right? So then some of them just found ways to like use different cushions. Some moved up against the wall because then chairs became limited. But you have like there's no lying down in the meditation hall. You can sit and make the most comfortable arrangement with pillows and chair and all that kind of stuff, but it's a seated meditation, which brings in, like for me it was very difficult physically and mentally. But in terms of sitting in this meditation hall, it's closed legged. If you need to open your legs like to stretch or something, like that's okay, like do what you got to do. If you need to move your body around, but you get to a point where you eventually are asked to not open your legs, not open your hands, and not open your eyes as you sit to meditate as a group.
I'm sorry. How do you place your hands when you meditate?
Right on left. I tried with different. I tried different
I'm
things.
just curious
Yeah,
what
yeah,
open hands looks like. You know.
yeah. So just palm on palm. I did try different things that felt comfortable. The thing is, it's like it's easy to be comfortable sitting for a minute, 2 minutes, but when you're asked to not move in any way, like you have to find like there's different micro adjust, and it's okay to move, like whatever. Don't torture yourself. Like discomfort is inevitable, but don't torture yourself. So like just how I place my hands would help me like just relax my shoulder a little bit more. So I had to make these small adjustments like throughout the days, because each day you're feeling different. Like your body is sore and
And I think that applies to meditation.
general.
Gen-
Yeah,
is you're gonna show up to it in different conditions all the time, and some days your body's gonna feel like absolute dog shit and a fire truck hit you, but other days you'll wake up like, oh, that was an easy 20 minutes or whatever it was. And it really varies, but like I think a big part of meditation is pretty much meditating and then also dealing with these realities as well, and that is a part of the practice. But for 10 hours, that's not easy for almost anybody, right?
no.
You
So
know,
it like my 3 years of meditating like didn't help. Like it was just as much as agony for me as maybe the next person. But in the context of 10 hours now, like I said earlier, throughout a day you get informal sessions, and like I would say that some people would use those informal sessions to rest the body. So they would take naps, and you know what, they needed to do that, they did that. They're not worse off, they're not better off, whatever. But at the same time, if you wanted to do so, you could choose to meditate through all those sessions. And if you look at like the curriculum, like if you look at the schedule, that would equal about 10 hours.
I want to see.
But there's also a realistic end of somebody maybe being on the tail end of like 5 hours,
Oh, interesting.
because there's the three formal group sittings, which are 1 hour apiece.
Okay.
And then sometimes you'd be in the meditation hall a little bit longer because of the check-ins, and they're only checking in groups at a time. So while you're there to meditate. Or sometimes it's a little bit longer. So lower end, maybe 5 hours of meditation a day. If you were this kind of person that chose to just nap through all the informal sessions, I don't think anybody did that. Maybe, who
Yeah.
knows?
But
Or
the option is there.
option is there, and
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So you make the experience what it is, and there's a course manager who, like, if you have questions about your setup or about anything like that, they're there, but they're not there to like answer your meditation questions. That's just purely the teacher. But this guy will make sure that, like, for the group sittings, everybody has to be there. So like if you're not there, he's gonna come find you, kind of deal.
Sick.
And everybody's assigned a seat.
Mm-hmm.
If we're thinking about a grid, and it was like, I want to say like a 6x6, 7x7 kind of grid, I was in the bottom right. Somebody had called like the front row killer's row at the end, and it was just like, because these guys were like, they didn't move. So during the 1 hour, like, they're not opening their legs, they're not opening their hands, they're not like breaking posture, they're just like stone Buddhas, right?
Goals.
But there were also people there that didn't have any posture. So some people, I no doubt, some people like ended up dozing off during the hour. It's just natural. Yeah, there were probably some people that dozed off during the hour, because if you choose to peek, and I peeked a few times here and there, like, you would just see people with like chin tucked right into their head and just like head slumping forward, and you want to think that they're meditating, but maybe they're like, who knows, just napitation. But I don't know. Yeah, so stone cold kind of front row, and then I was in the back row.
And you picked that?
No,
Oh,
I would never have picked that.
oh, really? Okay.
You're assigned a seat. If you want to move, you have to make like a request or something, and you have to have like a valid reason. I didn't really have a valid reason, but it's just like, if you're an experienced person, so if you're an older student, you are in the front. And then if it's your first time, you're going to be naturally more towards the back. And maybe it was because like my last name is W, so it's maybe alphabetical, but even then, I don't know. That's just but I was in the back right, not preferred. Foot traffic, in and out, because on the opposite side to where I was like where the women's side began on that side. So their grid on one side, our grid on the other. And then the door was just behind me, like to the entrance. So it's like just a lot of traffic to distract. And I did make this grievance one day. This was just before, like, day 4. There's like a weird switch that happens. But just before, I had asked my manager, and I was like, hey, the guy next to me moves a lot. And like, I find that very distracting. And I've noticed, like, at this point, I think like 2 or 3 people had dropped out. So on the men's side, maybe 4, 5, 6 men had dropped out.
Wow.
On the women, I believe, I don't know, but it didn't seem, maybe 1. And you don't really know names, but you just, because everybody's assigned a seat, if a space has popped up, it's just like, oh, okay, somebody's not showing up today. And I think the process is pretty straightforward. You just say you don't want to be there. They'll ask you if you're sure, but you sign a waiver at the start, and not like a waiver, but it's just like, are you willing to like stay here for the next 10 days no matter what? It's like a contract kind of deal, right? Like, how serious are you willing to take this? Because if I didn't have to drive people home, I think I would have had that thought playing a little bit more of like walking. I'm like, I would have maybe thought that a little bit more strongly.
What are some reasons that made you want to walk out?
The first few days, four days, were agony, like, for my body. Just the sitting cross-legged was I had to work through a lot of discomfort. As much as I do yoga, like, combat sports is just also on the other side of that coin. And I probably don't do enough yoga to counter how much my body takes from combat sports.
Mm-hmm.
So just sitting cross-legged, it's not like muscle exertion, but aches pop up that you don't envision popping up, or an accumulation of soreness starts to come up that you don't anticipate. And for those first few days, like, foam rolling didn't help. Like, it would help a little bit, but you can open your legs, but I tried to stay disciplined with that. And I just was feeling like the pain going like more and more towards discomfort level. So for the first few days, it feels like, okay, Can't wait to get home in 9. Can't wait to get home in 8. Can't wait to get home in 7. Because I didn't want to be like, okay, I'm going to quit now kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of dreading the days
Mm-hmm.
along. And then at some point, it switched to I'm kind of curious to see what the next day brings. Because there's a switch in the experience that you feel within your body. But I'll say, like, in terms of my body, first 4 days, like agony, physical, 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 and a part of that's mental. And then after day 5.5, I got to a point where I could sit without moving.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to use my foam roller. I could, and I did, but just I also felt that I no longer needed it the way that my body needed it, and the pain just gets like dissolved. Like
So day 4, agony. Day 5.
yeah, and this was something I had to ask directly of like where the pain went, because I said my teacher, my assistant teacher there, his name was Diego. And I go, Diego, like, I haven't changed my posture. I haven't changed my seat. Been trying to do the same thing. And day by day, my pain's been going up, up, up. But where the hell has my pain gone in the last day and a half? Like, I haven't changed anything. And Diego just goes, paraphrasing, but it's like to every layer of physical pain that we have in our body, there's a mental pain that we throw on top of it. And when you're sitting for 10 hours a day, 1 hour at a time, blah, 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 you have to directly confront the mental pain so that you can actually get to the depth of the physical pain. Because a lot of times when we feel pain, it's a very intense sensation.
Yeah, usually it's the natural things. Fuck, how do I get rid of this?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sitting cross-legged. So it's not that like pain is directly like nobody's harming me, right? So there's like a stoic quote, I can't paraphrasing again, but it rang really true, and it's like if the pain that you're feeling is not being inflicted upon you, unless someone's like physically harming you, then there's a part of this pain that you're putting on yourself. And you're sit to confront that portion of the pain that you associate with the physical pain. So for me, and for everybody it's different, but that mental layer of pain that I was working through, that was building and building and building and building for 3.5, 4 days, got to a point where it reached its peak, and then it started to fizzle, 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 fizzle. And so once it fizzles out, and maybe it's just small embers, but it's no longer as intense, you're able to actually work with the physical sensation of what it is that you feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Or where were we just building off of from that?
So letting go of the pain, or
Yes.
more so learning to accept the pain, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So that was one of the things that you overcame within this experience.
Yes, and sorry, my thought about quitting through one of the early days because of that. And yeah, you can choose to leave at whichever point. But it was, yeah, once the pain started to alleviate, then the experience became a lot more curious about what was to come the following day, following day, following day.
What about the present day?
You're forced to really sit through it. So in terms of time, I'll explain it like this. My worst day, the day that I felt the lowest, was day 8. So I had a really poor night of sleep, a really bad dream on the night of that day 7. So coming into the morning of day 8, had a really bad dream. Woke up at 2 a.m. Couldn't get back to sleep, but the gong's gonna smash regardless at 4.
Yep.
And laid in bed for a little bit, but not really sleeping. But I knew I should get to the meditation hall, so I get there for about 5:30. Have energy, so I went for a little walk before. But from 5:30 till about like 9 p.m. till the final meditation, I maybe had 30 good minutes of what you could call good meditation. Everything else was just intrusive thought, not being able to hold on to the breath, to watch the breath, not being able to follow the breath, not being able to stay present. And it was just a very chaotic day. And it felt very, very like dejecting, because I was making what I perceived progress day 5, 6, 7, because I felt I was getting deeper and deeper, and I was understanding objectively. I felt I was understanding the technique and working through what the technique was asking, the meditation technique. And then day 8 comes, and I'm like, throughout the whole day, just maybe a window of like 20-30 minutes that I would feel I was very present. Otherwise, just the whole rest of the day very out of, like, in my head kind of deal, right? So I asked Diego again. I go, like, felt I was making progression, and like I felt I was understanding. And today, like, I can't even screw the understanding. I can't even like pay attention to what's being taught. And once again, like, just very like simple way of just saying, like, you're going through a storm. That was one of these like things that was talked about. And sometimes when you make progress, you get to that point where the body is kind of just going through a hazy phase. I felt cloudy, like mentally just turbulent. And it's cool because it's like, that is a sign of progress in this way. Like, you're going through, because what you're asked to practice is a mental state of equanimity.
What is equanimity?
Yeah. So, word of the experience. It's a state of mental balance. And so in the context of the teaching and the experience, there are pleasant sensations that we feel and unpleasant sensations. And usually with the pleasant sensations, we crave them, we desire them, we cling to them and multiply misery there. And with the unpleasant sensations, we generate sometimes anger, hatred, ill will, or we run away from them, or we create some form of distance so we don't confront them head on. So you multiply that in all its ways. Yeah. And in the state in the middle, there's just observation, just to see what's happening for what it is. Yeah. And what sometimes clouds that observation is we sometimes expect this to go a certain way. So I was making progress, day 5, 6, 7, and I'm expecting progress to continue, but I did not expect a nightmare to happen at 2 a.m. in the morning. So that you have to deal with. And then, comparison. That's another thing that you can kind of get looped into. Now you're woefully let down because this day is comparatively worse than the other day. Not taking the day for what it is, but to now have this misery of comparison. And then you start judging yourself. So like, these are just like things that come to mind of like, why can I not do this, as opposed to just accepting what's happening and moving.
It's the meta thought. It's like, you got a thought and you get another thought about it,
yeah.
And you get emotional about it, and so you get a thought about the emotion, and then suddenly you're emotional about being emotional, and then holy shit, it just really spirals sometimes, dude.
Absolutely.
And that's called the human experience. And I think that's pretty much what this whole meditation thing really comes down to, is like, can you be a human being versus a doing, right? And like, there's I love that, because it's such a stupid simple way of saying learn to be. And what is being is just learning to sit with your mind, because that mind is always being. Yeah, it's always there, and you might as well get acquainted with it.
And you're put in an environment where it's made for your best success. Yeah. So it's
like a library for studying.
Yeah, plus prison.
Sure.
So in the sense, and I guess this was a huge thing that I kind of missed, but during orientation, during the first course, you're asked to take like 5 precepts, or like 5 vows of morality, and you're asked to adhere to all of them as best as you can. So the first one is to abstain from harming or killing.
Damn it.
Hard to do sometimes, right?
So hard.
But you're given a vegetarian diet, so you don't even have to, like, it extends to not just the physical harm, but the relationship of that extending outwards. So to abstain from harming or killing yourself or others. And you can think of these 5 precepts on a physical level, on a vocal level, and on a mental level, internally and externally. And I might butcher the order, but the second of the five is to abstain from taking what is not yours. So from stealing, essentially, right? To abstain from sexual misconduct, to abstain from like not telling the truth, from lying, and then to abstain from all intoxicants. So those are the five precepts that you have to take. And you're put in an environment where you do have to constantly check yourself on these five.
Mm.
Yeah, it's easy to not lie outwards because you're asked to stay quiet, but from the day to day experience, are you lying to yourself?
And just talking in your head the whole time
And
versus actually, breathing and do the whole thing.
yeah, and some days you have to just accept the fact like today's not going to be the optimal day that I wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I desired for the day to be a certain way, but the reality is it's like this.
Yeah.
It's like it's a phrase known as yata bhuta, and it's essentially reality as it is, not reality as we would desire it to be. So we have this like mental image of like what the perfect world is or what we would desire happiness to be, but that's in here. That's not as the moment is unfolding in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So his answer to my cloudy day, essentially, because that day felt very long, felt like I was like I had that thought again of like can't wait for the day to be like for this thing to be over, because now you're just stuck with this experience of progress and now dejection. And he told me to just weather the storm, and he's like, if you can take a step back, so if you can't feel your body the same way, then just come back to feeling your breath. Very clear language, nothing that I couldn't understand. And it helped, but then essentially going back to sleep, having a proper night's sleep, starting again, and that storm that I was was weathered. It's calm after, and then I could just pick up where I left off.
And now you're on day 9.
That was moving into day 9, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say hard days were the first few days, 3-4 days. Cool like growth days were the middle pack, and then the ending had its ups and downs, but there was ups and downs the whole day. Each day had a challenge.
Yeah.
For a lot of it, it's just sitting try sitting for an hour. Like has its own difficulty, and then all the stuff there. Yeah. So yeah, you're asked to take the vows. You're asked to practice meditation in a certain way where you can get to a point where you don't have to open your legs, you don't have to open your hands or your eyes. It just becomes additional stimulus for your body to get distracted by. And yeah, like those are like the central tenets of the 10-day experience, and then each day becomes your own personal experience.
Now, how did it wrap up?
So on the morning of the 10th day, you're finally able to speak after the first morning meditation. And on the 10th day...
Sorry, do you remember your first words? After the 10 days? I'm just curious. It's such a stupid question, but...
Maybe. I remember like one of my first... Because the thing was, I had a lot of people that came to talk to me.
Oh.
I didn't talk to... I was feeling a little bit reserved of wanting to like talk out aloud. But I remember because I carpooled with another guy. And he's a very tall guy, like 6'5". So he was not sitting cross-legged on the ground, and he had his chair, and like I would see him in the corner, and I just remember, I patted him on the back. I'm like, hey, we did it. Like
Nice.
in my mind, I didn't know if he was going to be able to do it because his body was going to have some issues, and then he hadn't meditated for a very long time. So I was like, damn, like good for you on the challenge, but like I hope you make it. Like wish them all well, right? And he made it. I was like, yeah. Great, like you know what it takes to get to the finish line, and
It must really suck to get driven by somebody and then let them go home, because that would be a scary time.
there are rides organized at the
Okay,
end, but I would feel horrible to drive them there and then to just peace out, be like, yeah, you guys are on your own now.
Yeah, that's even more pressure on you not leaving.
I've heard like the stories of people arriving together and then one person leaves
No.
because one person just backs out,
Yeah.
kind of deal.
Yeah.
And then I mean, you're probably able to hear, like, you can ask your teacher or the manager, be like, hey, like, I arrived with so and so and they're not here. Like, are they okay? Because you don't know if they've walked away or
Yeah.
if something's happened. So you could ask that, but that's been something that's happened. So it's not a couple's bonding experience, although it can be that.
Yeah.
One gentleman had actually searched on Google for a couple's retreat,
No.
and he had found it on Google. It came up on Google for a couple's retreat.
Spending time in your head is so romantic.
Yeah, apart from one another. And so this was his second time coming. And the first time around, it was like early pandemic or mid pandemic or something like that. Um,
Sounds like a great time to do it.
yeah, right. So he proposed it to his wife then, and she goes, "It sounds great, but not for me. Like, you can go, but I'm not going to." So he went and did it regardless. And when he returned, he said he kept like the experience like more like like a Google review, like good bed, like clean beds, good food, like well like scheduled like kind of like thing.
Yeah.
Um, but she had said that she noticed a difference in him. So this time around, he was coming for a second time, and she was coming for her first.
That's me.
And then there were just other people that I found out at the end came as couples as well, which is very like a powerful experience in itself.
You know, what's funny is in the MBSR course that I took, so that is the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction by John Kabat-Zinn. It is an 8-week, 1 day a week kind of course, an evening, like 3 hours online over Zoom. Nothing too crazy, but you do learn a lot of good foundational stuff, a lot of theory and techniques and whatever, right? And the teachers talked about how oftentimes people will come take the course and then their significant others or family members will start commenting on like, hey, you've changed, what happened? Like, why aren't you as annoyed with me, or like why like like why aren't you like snappy or whatever it
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be.
yeah.
And you often hear about these significant others taking that MBSR course right after, or if anything just getting into the active meditation just simply from observation, because I think oftentimes the thing with meditation is the image of who we think is meditating and who can meditate, right? Like, it's people think you got to be a fucking noble yogi and a monk and all these things to sit down and just meditate. But and then at the same time, a big part of meditation is knowing when you don't need to be in your head right now. You can just stop, get out. It's not for everybody. There is a matter of fact around PTSD and meditation being far more difficult and not straightforward at all. So yeah, it's not recommended per se for someone who does have very strong PTSD. But for the average person, making time to sit down for 5 minutes takes some effort and intention, and then over time you start to see little moments in your day that you didn't have before. And in the world of mindfulness, they call that choice points, where you can have a moment where you can have a new choice point in that moment, where instead of snapping at the person who cut you off in the road, you now have a choice point because you're able to catch your breath, going berserk. Your head is absurd. You physically feel tense. And through the act of meditation, you can learn what these things feel like one by one,
Mm-hmm.
piece by piece. You can learn what that experience feels like. And over time, you can integrate it in your day because you recognize things so much faster. And then you get a choice point. You're like, I have another option here. And that's a really, really nice thing. But as somebody who's been meditating for 3 years, curious about it for 10, I still fall into desire and cravings and all these things, right? But the differences that it has made and the moments that I have applied it, as cheesy as it sounds, has changed my life.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
It's improved relationships times 10.
Life is just like an accumulation of moments.
Yeah.
I've never heard of choice points. Um, but it's interesting because just in the experience of meditation itself, you get to a like, I'll be honest, first few days I'm itching away and I'm scratching away,
Mm-hmm.
but you get to a point where you're just asked to observe the sensation of the itch. And what we're being taught in terms of the meditation techniques are they're Buddhist, but there's no Buddhism being talked about. It's the Buddha who.
It's a Buddhist tradition.
It's what it's rumored to be. It's what we're learning, Vipassana.
Mm-hmm.
It's the purest meditation technique that the Buddha himself had taught. No religious dogma associated with it. No, dogma, no belief. No, it's not asking you to believe anything. It's just asking you to try the technique on yourself, kind of deal.
And then, if anyone out there is religious, there's a very popular saying that you can be religious and still learn Buddhism. It can make you a better Christian in theory, and these are things that I've heard from Buddhists and priests from just literally out of curiosity and trying to understand it myself. So I used to be a very, very like hardly objective kind of person. If I don't see it, I don't believe it. Like, and it's transformed over time where it's become a lot less objective and a lot more about like feeling things out, you know. And it's not like feeling things out in the sense of like, oh, like, am I sad? Am I happy? It's like feeling like, what does it feel like right now to make this decision that I'm making? What does it feel like to say the thing that I'm saying right now? And these are things that you don't realize affect you over time.
Yep.
And so like a lot of the mean people in the world, I've become able to tolerate a lot better because I realize that it's their fucking suffering.
Yes.
I have to do nothing for you to suffer. And in theory, that is the ultimate form of karma. Like the angry fucking, you know, mean person in the world, they're suffering twicefold, and they have a huge mountain to climb to get to the space where they can sit down and meditate for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, that's the bare minimum or whatever, but like that's a high mountain to climb when you're facing yourself like that.
And so for a lot of people that come to start a meditation practice and that's the position that they're starting from, you got a lot of weeds to dig out before you
Your garden is a fucking mess, dude. Clean that shit up.
And you kind of realize that how much we just unconsciously put on and on and on.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, meditation becomes something to run from. You sent me that study, and I've mentioned it before as well, but when some group of people had a choice to either spend 15 minutes...
I could play it.
Yeah, but they had some choice to sit in a room with
15 minutes with their thoughts, or if you're absolutely bored and you can't handle it and you can't handle your thoughts like that, then you can choose to shock yourself. And I think something about 60 to 80% of the subjects chose to fucking shock themselves. And if you really mirror that into day-to-day life and day-to-day living, we're shocking ourselves with our phones, we're shocking ourselves with our interactions with the world and how we engage with people around us. Like, we're literally choosing to shock ourselves out of our experience because it is so uncomfortable to be.
Yeah.
Being is hard. To sit and know that you have all these desires and cravings all the time, and to have urges that you have no control over, where you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't want to think this. You know, those like really silly intrusive thoughts. Like, one of them is I'll be driving and then suddenly I'll envision a car accident happening to me. That's an intrusive thought that has nothing to do with reality.
Yeah.
But I've just created it, and now my body feels tense, and now emotionally I'm tense, and I'm like, that's a thought. And that one thought just created a whole ripple in that moment. And if I didn't address it, then I would have been a tense driver.
Yeah.
Probably made me a worse driver. Like,
I think one of the things is you like, those thoughts were still there.
Yeah.
Like all that kind of
but
stuff.
But they never go away. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
Is you'll always have this like silly human brain.
Absolutely. And
it's silly, and that's the best way to look at it sometimes.
Absolutely. I think one of the things
sorry,
you don't realize that because we're at this point where I call this experience like waking up, because
shout out some hairs.
Yeah, and it's just all, and it's a bunch of times mentioned in like a lot of the things, right? But we're very unconscious of our day-to-day experience. We just go through the motions.
As John Kabat-Zinn says it, falling awake.
Yeah. And in this experience, you're kind of, it's mentioned time and time again that humans are very much social beings.
Yeah.
But you're put into an environment where, yes, you're interacting, but the most common form of communication now has become speech. Like, what words matter,
Hmm.
but I've also always believed that we as a species learned how to like sing and dance before we've developed like pure speech. I think there was a lot of nonverbal communication that we've just kind of become tuned out to. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of day to day like nonverbal communication, like the nod at the gym to the guy that you see
Weren't
every
even yeah,
day.
we weren't even able to do that. Like it's discouraged to even nod.
So acknowledging people is not even encouraged in
It
the
serves
generation.
yeah,
Wow.
like your presence is enough kind of deal. Like you can hold the door open, but you know how we sometimes hold a door open and like we expect like a thank you?
Okay, not
Yeah, but if you don't get it, you
just.
then have like a who's this asshole who
Yeah,
didn't say thank you
yeah.
to me
I
holding.
would have said
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, you just allow yourself to have the purest experience there.
Hmm.
So glances and gestures, like I did catch myself trying to smile at people at the start, but after a time went on, it's just
Fuck
kind
your kindness.
of yeah. It's
Yeah.
kindness only on day 10.
Mm.
So
Neutral otherwise,
yeah,
pretty much.
and I think there's a very I feel now there's a very deliberate reasoning to that, because the experience from day 1 through 9 is very much meant to like tame the mind, train the mind, and the way that I'm coming to kind of perceive the experience on the 10th day, you're kind of given a key to open your heart because you practice loving kindness.
Okay.
And if you've done the work and you've laid the foundation, then maybe there's a bunch of layers too and how many gates you can open with this key, but you can open the heart a little bit on day 10.
I'll put that in layman terms,
Okay.
and that is the more stuff you work through in your head, the easier it is to get to your heart. So every time you sit down and meditate, you don't realize that you are also an emotional being, and emotions are a big part of life. But we don't realize how much our thoughts and our thinking gets in the way of feeling anything at all. And the more you can, the more you can sit, observe a thought come up, accept it, go back to your breathing, let it go. The more you can do that, the more you realize, wow, holy shit, I am so caught in my head right now. And like, this changes how you interact with people because now you can feel things better because you have felt everything yourself. So by feeling the things you felt within yourself, the discomfort, the agony, the suffering, and all these things that have come up for Nav in the first 4 days, 5 days, and then even the eighth day with like doubt and uncertainty, the storm, if you will. He navigated all of that and had to face all the uncomfortable feelings that came from those experiences. By facing those uncomfortable feelings, you're also facing the thoughts that come with them. So, in a sense, you're peeling layers of an onion, and that is a very common meditation metaphor. Is every time you sit down, you're going from the most surface level bullshit to like, oh, like what I gotta do in the morning. Oh, like I gotta scratch this, do that. Like these are very surface level things. Then the more you meditate, you'll start to like notice some heavier things come up, and this is where it gets hard for people, and this is where people get uncomfortable, and this is where you also have a choice point to say, hey, I'm gonna stop and get up, and that's fine. But for Nav to get to the end of the 10 days, he has felt such a spectrum of emotion, and comfort and pleasure and all these feelings that at the 10th day, by opening the heart, you can allow feelings of the outside world to enter you a lot more naturally. It flows.
You
It
can
flows
give
better.
and receive a lot more naturally.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, exactly.
one of my friends, she mentioned this. Something about there's some book called like the Celestine Prophecy or something like that. I don't know too much about it, but there's just like this flow of the universe that like so in a terms of a conversation, no one's trying to take over the other.
Hmm.
It's when it's your turn to give and when it's your turn to receive. And how I felt in that 10 days, like on the 10th day, I gave from receiving. A lot of people approached me to have a conversation with me, and for a lot of them said things like my posture was very good in meditation. Kept my neck straight, back straight. Like I try to keep that determination. And there were a lot of people slumped and all that. But one of the things that they had said was when I thought about like posture and all this kind of stuff, like you came to my mind. And this is weird kind of compliment to give a bro, right? But in the context of this meditation experience, they could not see me because we were eyes closed, but they were able to feel my determination. And that's a word that gets used a lot during this experience, is strong determination. And it really opened up this experience of so much of what we perceive others from others about others is just a mental image in your head. And on the 10th day, when somebody opens their mouth for the first time in 10 days, a lot of it's a holy shit moment. Because everything you've thought about this person for 10 days, outside of that window of an hour and a half on day 0,
You're still making judgments from day 1 to 10. Right?
And-
And these are natural judgments. It's not like you're judging everyone individually. But
Yeah.
you walk by, you see a color shirt, you have a thought.
yeah,
You see a certain hair accessory, you have a certain hair thought. Like, we have so many thoughts.
And on day 0 or on day 10, so much that dissolves. And if you've done the work, like how it felt for me was for the first time in my life, like I could genuinely feel love, compassion, and goodwill towards everybody that I interacted with on that day. And to a greater part in my day-to-day experience, that's like an experience that's something I'm trying to bring with me from that retreat. And that comes only from the fact that for 10 days, whether knowingly or unknowingly, like I had to routinely show myself love, compassion, and goodwill to make it towards the end. And a lot of times we read these things to be true and we believe them to be true, but we don't feel them to be true. And the feeling of that goodwill towards one another, like how I said, like on day 0, group of men were like a big circle of timid energy. Day 10, like we were just clusters, like right next to each other. Like the connection instantly like bloomed. And you could just see people wanting to share and talk in a completely different way. That is,
I mean, you've been forced to be silent. You're just excited now.
and the excitement is just so pure. No ulteriourness like behind it, right? It's
like a kid approaching you in public, like they're just
yeah, like and the mild mind of a child is something that's used sometimes in meditation as well, but that curious wonder of approaching someone, that awe of interacting with someone,
or life,
yes. And when you're forced to, I guess, put a pause on all of those kind of reactions, what you're doing over the 10 days is understanding, at least for me, like we've become desensitized to a lot of this. And through the 10 days, you work to purify your mind so that you can approach these mundane situations of life with some sense of some vibrancy, to actually have a connection, no ulterior motives kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it just starts with the mind. We over the 10 days, a bunch of people I thought of in a certain way, not good or bad, but somebody's 10 pounds this or 6 foot that, or what do they do? They got this kind of tattoos. He's got glasses, wears a collared shirt, like anything, you name it. But all of that's just being wound up in your head.
Yep.
And until you have that direct conversation or somebody talks with you, it's all in your head until you experience it.
Yeah.
So in terms of timeline, day 10, for the rest of the day, you're able to speak, but you're still following the meditation schedule. Didn't mingle with everyone, talked with pockets of people, and had
That's when they served wine and.
Oh yeah, of course. No, actually we got potato soup.
Fuck yeah, that's better than
so
wine.
so that on day 10 we were given dinner. So instead of like at 5 p.m. only fruit and stuff like that, we were given soup. and I think there was salad and stuff like that, but it was like this potato soup. but you're still allowed to talk for the rest of the day with the other men. And then day 11, you have a final meditation at 4:30, I think. At 4:45 it begins. And that was a very powerful experience because it's a closure experience. And then you clean up and you're out the door. So
Why was it a powerful experience?
it's a real testament to the extent of your loving kindness,
Mm-hmm.
because it's easy to feel love towards people that you love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to feel love towards those that have wronged you. But a lot of times, there's a component of forgiveness that we're ignorant of. So we tell ourselves that we have forgiven. We tell ourselves that we've moved on. We tell ourselves something, but we keep ourselves from feeling the full depth of what it is that we need to feel. So on the final day, during the closing ceremonies, your prayers, whatever you want to call it, you're reciting loving kindness, and you're not doing it in the same way on day 10 as day 11. Mm-hmm. Not only are you asked to recite the it's like, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be harmonious, may I be liberated. I'm just going to go down the list of certain things that you are saying. May others share in my peace, may others share in my love, my compassion, my goodwill. And if you've done the work through the 10 days, you're going to feel this. Now, that doesn't mean you cry. Some people do. That's perfectly normal. But you're able to actually feel these things coming from an authentic place. But then you're also asked to confront for the first time that you have to forgive people that have harmed you in any way that was knowingly or unknowing. Go through a whole list of that. And then you got to take accountability to forgive yourself for harming others knowingly or unknowingly.
That's heavy.
Very powerful. And once again, if you're able to practice that clause of morality, that vow that you take of telling no lies, it's very easy to lie externally, but time and time again through the 10 days, your choice points of lying to yourself or being truthful or being deceitful kind of deal. And once again, these are very powerful choice points that you are confronting. And I believe I was able to do the work that let me actually experience some truth in a way that I hadn't experienced before. You had made up the analogy that I had lost 7 pounds during my 10 days.
You did lose physical 7 pounds.
Yes, I did.
The analogy was you
yes,
lost 7 pounds of mental baggage.
Yes, and I think that's very much how I feel leaving this experience. My mind feels 7 pounds lighter to the ground. It feels less weighed down, and it feels like the kind of weight that, I know where a couple of the pounds came off from, but a lot of the shit was just unconscious weight, just baggage that we're holding on to that we don't even realize. Now this perspective switch, through having countless choice points for 10 days, 24 hours a day, through all various types of experiences of life, you let go of a lot of stuff that you're not even aware that you're holding on to. As much as you're aware of some things you hold on to, other things that you're holding on to a little bit tightly, loosely, whatever, but it's just a constant state of letting go. And so I do feel mentally lighter as I return, and it's the type of weight that I think I can keep off.
And I think, do you want to wrap this?
Yes. Okay. 10 days are kind of explained.
Yeah. So, okay.
If you have something to add there.
What is the ultimate why?
Okay.
Getting into it and doing it.
I have a background with psychedelics. I've explored consciousness, if you want to use quotation marks or literal interpretation of that. And I will say that this Vipassana experience was the most psychedelic of my life. I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't seeing Jesus or anything.
What psychedelics have you tried, just so people know?
Plead the fifth. You can ask me in person, man. Jeez. Allegedly or something. I don't know. Cannabis, that's legal. How about that? I've tried cannabis.
It is a mild psychedelic for anybody wondering. So
yes. psychedelics have shown me answers, but this Vipassana experience helped me experience truth. And we can differentiate some of that of
So I think another way to put it would be like you got the theory from psychedelics, and then you got the experience from the retreat.
I can hang up the phone. Ram Dass saying, I think.
What's the message? What's the truth?
You got the answer. You could have hung up with the psychedelics as well, but there's something about psychedelics because it's temporary that we chase back after them. But with Vipassana, with a meditation experience of this magnitude, you just come to understand that you don't have to chase, it's already there.
Reality is not as it seems, is what this retreat.
Yeah, oh my God, yes, absolutely.
In the meantime, it introduced you to real reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's pretty much what I'm getting from it. You know? You go in, you have your own idea of what life is like, and then you face it head on and you realize that your existence, not life, your existence on this planet, your day to day, is spent preoccupied, dwelling, ruminating, fucking, shitting on yourself, like all these awful things that we do during the day. And yeah, we can think, we can, ruminate. These are normal human things, but we don't realize how caught up we are until we sit down and we're like, oh, I had a lot in my head.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think for me, like, all I need is 5 minutes now in the day, and I it's like my little checkpoint back into objective reality and not the clusterfuck of a reality that I've created in my head. You know what I mean? Like,
and I think just ending with that, the powerful thing that human beings have is the ability to transform just simply one moment, one breath. And so 5 minutes, great. If all you have is 1 minute, that's great as well. What can you do with that 1 minute to make it as peaceful and as calm for you as you can? So yeah, we'll pick up next time.
I'll finish it with a John quote.
Okay, yeah.
As long as you're breathing, you are completely whole. That's it.
Awesome. High five.